time for Global Insights, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. Will the world's richest man become the champion of free speech and online democracy? Elon Musk last week struck a $44 billion deal to buy social media firm Twitter, making it an offer it couldn't refuse. After publicly criticizing the company over everything from its declining popularity, its uninspiring services to content moderation, Musk decided to run the company himself. Now, it's unclear what his exact plans are for the company and how they will be realized, but for now we can only speculate. We discuss whether the world's #1 IT mogul can achieve his digital utopia of what he called free speech and maximum fun. Now, for today's Global Insight, we're joined by Arirang, professor at Korea University's Business School, as well as CEO of Arirang AI, and Daryl West, senior fellow at the Center for Tech Innovation at Brookings Institution. Thank you both so much for joining us this morning. And well, my first question goes to you, Professor Lee. Now, this takeover, it surprised many people, but it raised a common question of why? Now, Musk said that he's going to do it for free speech and democracy, and of course he's criticized Twitter's content control. But as much as free speech is critical to democracy, of course we have disinformation, we have hate speech. These kind of elements, they're very harmful to societies. And Musk himself, he's no stranger to controversy. He's posted numerous tweets that stir confusion and, among many people. But now, what is his idea, Professor Lee, of free speech? And do you think it's really going to benefit democracy?
There are some critics like Mr. Musk is going to spend over $44 billion to keep his right to speak freely for himself, because many of his tweets has been seriously criticized. And then also, especially the former President Donald Trump, his Twitter account was banned. So I think this kind of recent event might have affected his decision to really keep his freedom of speech by acquiring Twitter, which is a leading platform for mainly information related to politics and many social issues. That would be his personal reason. And of course, in general, Twitter and Facebook and other social network services like LinkedIn have been evolving in different fashion. For example, many people are using LinkedIn for professional purpose, and Facebook very personal, and Twitter is located in the middle, and their users are using Twitter for mainly disseminate their ideas and their really opinion freely in massive, unlimited way. So probably he might have a very positive opinion about to keep this kind of usage of Twitter as agora for conversation and debate and discussion on politics on a global scale.
And Dr. West, I wonder how you see this. Do you think Musk is really championing free speech, or is there a chance that he's going to weaponize it?
Well, there is the risk that he may weaponize freedom of speech, because the way Elon Musk defines free speech is any speech that is lawful, meaning anything that is legal, he thinks people should be allowed to say on social media sites. But of course, the problem is there are many things that are perfectly legal but are outrageous or false. During COVID, we've seen a lot of false information circulate in the United States as well as other places around the world about vaccines, wearing masks, and other aspects of the pandemic. A lot of that stuff is perfectly legal, but we don't want algorithms to spread that information, to spread false information. And so there's a real danger for democracy if Musk's absolutist freedom of speech stance really takes hold, because there will likely be more extreme rhetoric on social media sites, more hate speech, more things that pit group against group, and therefore makes it difficult to have reasonable discussion on various issues.
And Professor Lee, well, one of the biggest issues that Musk has had with Twitter is the banning of accounts that allegedly violate the platform's policies. So how does Twitter generally moderate content, and what do you think will be Musk's approach to changing it to make Twitter what he called politically neutral digital town square?
I think that is quite paradoxical because the way that he wanted to acquire Twitter is to make the Twitter be private. Currently, Twitter is a listed company under lots of different type of control, inside control as well as external control. However, once he acquires Twitter, it's going to be private, even though he claimed that he will make algorithm be open, which can be neutral. However, I think this private company will not be as much as in a way controlled or counter weighted by the public as well as the regulators. So that is, I think, very paradoxical point of his move to acquire Twitter.
And Dr. West, well, Musk plans to make Twitter what he called, again, politically neutral digital town square. But at the same time, he's tweeted things like the far left hates everyone, including themselves. And he's also generated some concern that Donald Trump might come back on Twitter. And, well, what would be the ramifications of Musk taking on Twitter? Do you think it's going to further drive polarization in US politics?
I think it will make American politics more polarized, and that already is a huge problem in the United States. And the Trump case is really an interesting example of this in the sense that the old management basically banned Trump from Twitter for his lifetime because of his role in inciting the violence where the mob stormed the U.S. Capitol building a year ago. But Musk, if he takes his freedom of speech stance seriously, may argue that Trump is a popular political figure among certain circles in the United States. He certainly is a legitimate news source. He may actually run for president in 2024 and then use those arguments to basically bring Trump back onto the platform. And if that happens, of course, Trump was very divisive when he was president. Twitter was his megaphone in which he would announce his positions to the world. It was very contentious. He did make disparaging comments about many people, about women, about racial minorities, about immigrants. And so if Musk plans to either bring Trump back or allow such a wide range of freedom of speech that those types of very contentious things appear on social media platforms, polarization will end up getting worse in the United States.
And Professor Lee, Musk also, well, he pretty much declared a war on spam bots, and he said he will aim to authenticate all real human beings. Now, is this going to be feasible, though? How do you think he's going to approach this?
Yes, technically, which is possible. There's a very solid algorithm to filter the accounts which are owned and operated by algorithm instead of real human. So technically, which is possible. However, it's going to be also controversial whether to allow or not that kind of a bot-based Twitter account. I think those kind of discussion need to be, I think, handled much more publicly. That was my point of view. Once he acquires a Twitter, it's going to be private. I'm not sure whether there will be enough discussion and a kind of transparency, even vis-a-vis his position, the fight against war against those bot-based, non-human Twitter accounts.
And Dr. West, now some fear that Musk undermining Twitter's enforcement of its community guidelines might expose and compromise the safety of political activists, journalists and minorities in some jurisdictions. Now, how do you think these concerns need to be addressed?
That certainly is a legitimate worry because many countries around the world are turning authoritarian. They're cracking down on the political opposition. They're weakening the news media and their ability to hold leaders accountable. So if the standard is local community guidelines and the local laws or the national laws in particular countries are very repressive, then the risk is that that Musk's Twitter may actually expose dissidents and journalists to a much greater danger. So I think we have to be careful to watch how he actually uses the platform, how he identifies people. Right now, people can be anonymous on Twitter. Musk has said he wants to remove anonymity and verify people's actual identity. And so I think these are all things that in repressive regimes and in authoritarian countries could pose a lot of risks for people.
And Dr. West, another question for you now. Jeff Bezos, he raised concern that Elon Musk might be influenced by China, given Tesla's business interests in Beijing. Now, is such a concern legitimate, and how might such influence be manifested?
Well, Tesla, Musk's other company, is building a factory in China. I think it's right outside of Shanghai, has a lot of business interest in China. And Musk himself has cultivated close ties with the Chinese leadership. And so there is concern that when Musk takes control of Twitter, that there may be a change in the geopolitics of that social media platform, which now has criticized China for various domestic and foreign policies. And so I think everybody will be watching to see how Twitter handles the possible conflicts between Musk's business interests, either in Tesla or in SpaceX, versus how he actually runs Twitter.
And now, Professor Lee, now moving to the business side of things, does this still make sense? I mean, Twitter shares, they were trading below $40. That's not that much more than its IPO price of $26 in November of 2013. And well, since then, a number of other social media platforms have been popping up, and Twitter's user growth has been slowing down in recent years. And of course, Musk's been one of its biggest critics. So first of all, what's been causing Twitter to decline, and do you think Musk can actually turn things around?
So already there was a strong signal because Twitter's stock price has been risen to $49 per stock. So already 20% of increase. That means that there's a Musk effect on Twitter, because Twitter, even though it has been stabilized and generating profit, however, it doesn't really was not able to provide the vision compared to other kind of social network services. So I think the transition of control from current board to Mr. Musk may be a kind of pivotal timing for Twitter if everything goes into the right direction.
Well, this is where we're going to have to wrap up today. That was Yi Jang-hyuk, Professor at Korea University's Business School, and Darryl West, Senior Fellow at the Center for Tech Innovation at Brookings Institution. Again, thank you both so much for your insights today.
Thank you for inviting me.